In a world where responsibilities run your life, there's no time for joy, no time for leisure. A two-man army emerges from the shadows. One goal in mind, take you back to the joy of yesteryear. Scratch the surface of your childhood and make you believe once again. From the studio to your speakers, there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. This is Dude, Remember This, with your hosts, Jake the Geek and Zeke the Audio Freak. So sit back and enjoy the ride as we fly down memory lane.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Dude Remember This. I'm your host, Jake the Geek. With me as always is Zeke the Audio Freak. And this time we're really excited. We have a treat for you guys. We scoured the depths of the earth, looked everywhere to find somebody that you would really want to hear, because you guys don't listen to the show for us. We're both idiots and never have anything interesting to say. So we go out and we try to find people that you may want to actually listen to. And this week we actually got Andy McElfresh, who is, well, if you don't know who he is, then just come on, what's wrong with you? We've been talking about this for like 3 weeks now. You should have already looked it up. Do your homework. Be a part of this with us. And just do some homework next time. And look at our guests. That way you can ask questions. Okay? That's all we ask, guys.
Very hostile. I'm still trying to figure out who I am. I mean...
You just go Google you.
Yeah,
that's all you have to do. Just Google you. It's really easy. So yeah, our guest, that's that you're hearing. That's now. Do you go by Andrew, Andy? I know I hear
Andy. Yeah.
Andy. Okay, perfect. Well, I wanted to start. I usually start by saying something weird that happened to me this week, because for some reason something weird always happens to me.
Yeah.
Not you so much.
No.
You're usually just normal. I just don't. I think you're oblivious to everything going on.
That's probably it.
I think weird stuff probably happens left and right to you, and
I just don't realize
you
it.
have no idea what's going on in the world. You just let it fly by.
Yep.
So we had a storm a few days ago,
Mm-hmm.
and of course where I work in Indianapolis, on the south side of Indianapolis, and I work for a construction company. And my office basically is a giant airplane hangar, and I'm the only one who works in there.
Nice.
Yeah, except for the fact that it's like 100 degrees in there at all time because there's no AC or anything. So yeah, not fun. Well, it started storming the other day, so if it's storming, I can't be outside working. I have to go inside the hut.
Yeah.
So I go in there and I'm sitting at my desk. I'm doing some paperwork, trying to catch up on some things, and then it starts raining harder.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had shut the garage door. We have two large garage doors on either side. I'd shut the garage door just that way all the rain doesn't come in. Well, on the bottom side of the garage, the whole front of the garage door is a drain, basically. There's a drain right there, and it just, rains and water goes to the drain. Turns out that drain was clogged.
Oh.
So all that water is just building up in front of the door, and on the side of the door, there's just a little hole.
Mm-hmm.
And that water just rushed in. It flooded and it's an airplane hangar. It flooded almost the entire thing. It was up to my shins with water, like flash flood, that quick. I was terrified, and I hollered for you, and you didn't come to save me.
I think I was on the phone with you when it first started storming, though.
It's a good possibility. Yeah, we were talking. Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, I know that's probably not that big of a deal, but, that was real weird, because it's airplane hangar I'm in Indianapolis. Like, it's not like... And it's not, I was right by the airport and all kinds of, so it's real weird. Like there's no creeks, there's nothing there to flood. It literally just rained so hard. Within 5 minutes,
but the
water
drain
pouring
was clogged, in. So it's probably already backed up some.
Yeah, probably. So, and it's Indianapolis and it's back. It probably smelled horrible.
I guarantee it.
I really need to take a deeper bath.
Yeah.
This is gross now. Just got real gross. Did you actually have anything weird happen to you this week, or was it just a normal week again?
Normal week again. I prefer normal, though.
You are, like, really exciting. Like, you're the perfect person to do a podcast because you have so much that happens to you.
I'm just going to go start up and, look for trouble now.
You should. You should look for trouble.
Might make things interesting.
It's for the show.
Yeah. I'll do that this week.
What about you, Andy? Do you have anything crazy happen to you this week?
Well, what I do is I just watch TV, and I use stories from that as if they'd happened in my own life, so...
Yes! Do that, Zach.
There
This
we
guy,
go.
see, he's already a genius.
No, I ride a Vespa here in town in Los Angeles, and so I take my life in my own hands at every single moment I'm on the road. And driving home tonight, my number was almost my ticket almost got punched by four girls all talking and texting in their car. Just closed the gap between cars as I was going through, and a big Harley was behind me, also splitting lanes. And it wasn't so much stopping in time for the girls; it was having him being able to stop without clobbering me.
Yeah.
And it was very close. And but here I am. I was like, "Get out of my way, man! I've got to go do an important podcast."
That's
Yeah,
right.
there we
That
go.
is right. I mean, like I said, I've Googled you. I've looked up what you've done. You've done
Yeah.
some really important stuff in your life. This is the peak of your career, man.
Really?
This being on
Yeah.
this show, this is it. Like, you've arrived now. This is the best thing. I'm proud of you for getting here.
Yes. No. Yeah. I'm. We're not doing this on camera, so I can't pick up the visual air quotes and winking.
No, it's great. Yeah, so tell us how. Now, did you get started with? I'm not sure the timeline of things. Now, I know you worked on one of the late shows, right? With Leno, is that right?
Yeah. You want to hear the extent of my broadcast television career?
Absolutely.
Started at MTV. I was a food writer before then, working for Zagat Survey. I was their first employee, and I got really fat. And then Kelsey Grammer was hosting the Top 20 Video Countdown, and somebody I knew was the producer, and she said, your dad's a psychiatrist, and you're funny. Would you write a funny Frasier-style Top 20 Video Countdown? And I said, sure. And I did it, and Kelsey Grammer was gracious enough to do it word for word. And so I got hired at MTV right away. I left my crappy food writing job in publishing, and I worked at MTV. I did a bunch of stuff that you're probably too young for, like the MTV Beach House in Malibu. I was an on-air character in addition to being a writer. I was the Mighty Beach House Tiki God. And I did about 3,000 voiceovers and spots for that. That was crazy. And then we went on to Comedy Central. We did the pre-production for The Daily Show. And then off we went to California. And I after some getting started, I went and worked for Keenan Ivory Wayans on the late night show, The Keenan Ivory Wayans Show.
Wow.
And do you know Keenan? He's Living Color and the Scary Movies.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So we, that's how I got started with that. And it's the reason I say this is it's like there's no mystery. You just have to find a way in, and you just have to work hard. So from there, I did all kinds of crazy things, including 2 full seasons of Rocket Power.
Oh,
And
yeah.
my partner Michael Bloom and I created that show, and that was really fun. That was a really fun time because we got to tell stories that were like the stories that when we were growing up, we didn't grow up together, but we grew up in the same place in South Jersey in the summer. And that's really what it's based on. Even though it takes place in California and Ocean Shores, it's kind of based on South Jersey, like Long Beach Island. So if you hear like some of the slang they use, like shoobies.
Shoobies, yeah, I was going to say that.
Shoobies is a South Jersey. That's South Jersey all the way.
Yeah.
Huh.
So then, a few more shenanigans. I wrote a couple movies. I worked on the Scary Movies with Keenan, and I wrote White Chicks with Shauna Marlin, and then I was off to the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and I worked there for 14 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And we'll get back to all of that. Let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
Now, whenever you say that you worked at MTV, what year was that you were doing that show?
Let me think. I started there in 91, and we did Beach House 94. 93, we did the Beach House in Long Island. Then in 94 and 95 was the Malibu Beach Houses. And then we left MTV. They kept doing the Beach House after that, but you could notice a sharp drop-off in quality after we left. I'm not saying it had anything to do with me.
It did, obviously.
Yeah.
So we were there. Let's see if you might know. Jenny McCarthy was one of our VJs. Chris Hardwick.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. And then that was about the same time Pauly Shore kind of started coming out, right?
Well, he'd been around. He was more of an old timer, and I had the opportunity to do
I had to do.
a lot of stuff with Pauly. I did all of his spring break shows. I did a bunch of pilots with him. And Pauly's a funny guy. He's an oddball, and he has a little bit of a speech thing. So we did a game show where Pauly was the host, and I had done a lot of game shows, and one of the questions you always ask is an easy one because every high school student has to read, or used to have to read, Little Women. It's like, who wrote Little Women? And the answer is Louisa May Alcott. And for some reason, those syllables could not be assembled in Pauly Shore's mouth. So we're standing on stage. I'm like, we'll just do it as a pickup. Let's do it live into the show. Louisa May Alcott. And he's like, Louisiana Cotton. Los Cots, low cot. And I'm like, all right, let's do it one syllable at a time. And I'd be like, Lou, and he would say, cot. So I got to meet Tom Kenny, the great voiceover artist. Voiceover artist for SpongeBob, for example. Because he was a voice artist in New York, and he came by the studio, and he did a perfect impression of Pauly Shore saying Louisa May Alcott. So that's a little story for you.
Nice.
So, yes, Pauly was there. He was at the Beach House a couple of times. But we had, like, big 90s stars there. Like, we had, like, Dr. Dre was in jail, and he had part of his sentencing, he had an agreement to get out and come and do the Beach House. So he showed up with his entourage, and of course he'd been in prison for a little while, so he drank as much, I don't know what, before he got there.
Right.
And we just propped him up against the pool table and kind of told stories about him while he stood there. But
nice.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was really fun. We got to meet. I'm exaggerating when it comes to that because, of course, they were all great and they were gigantic stars, and we were just a bunch of people who were doing it all for cheap and doing it by the seat of our pants and just cranking out 18 hours of programming a day.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what we're doing. We're just doing it from my best friend's bedroom and and just doing it for free. So we're doing the same thing. We're just reaching out to people that impacted our childhood in some way or people that we just want to talk to in general.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's great. I mean, if we're lucky, if we had the means to do it this way, I'm sure Viacom would have made us do it for free.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the whole meaning behind Stuck in the Heartland is that, we're stuck here and you guys are all in California for the most part. Everybody we've talked to so far is in New York or California. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, we're just going to bring you guys here and have a conversation that way.
I wouldn't say stuck. I mean, I do spend, especially for the Tonight Show, I spend a lot of time traveling. But now my son goes to Wisconsin, Madison, and we just did a show in Minneapolis, me and Kevin, and we kind of love the Midwest. I wouldn't say you're not stuck so much as have the opportunity to talk to folks wherever you want in the world and have the luxury of living in the heartland. You don't have the crazy property taxes and terrible drivers and all the craziness that we have. It's kind of a rat race out here. So.
Well, and that's kind of a big thing too. Is we discussed, my wife and I discussed years ago if we wanted to move to California because it's like, well, that's where the opportunity is, and it's like, no, it's not like that anymore. I mean, I literally with the internet the way it is now. I literally just the other day was talking with someone, a fairly large comic book company, because about just talking with them, I hopefully one day will be writing comic books. That's kind of my goal. And I'm in my bedroom just having this conversation with these people. I don't have to ever go meet with them or anything. I mean, eventually maybe it'd come to that. But for the most part, you can do any work like this from home completely. Yeah. It's amazing. We live in an awesome time.
Yeah, we really do. Technology's great.
Absolutely. So what about Jesse Camp? Yeah, Jesse Camp. Did you get to meet Jesse?
Jesse Camp?
Yeah, remember he was a VJ.
Oh, I know who Jesse is. No, I think he was after my time.
Okay, I thought so because that was more, I think, probably like 96, 97,
Yeah.
8, somewhere around in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't watch MTV because after I left working there, I noticed a sharp drop off in quality.
Yeah.
No, it's, I
You'll
mean,
hear that as a theme in my egotistical mind.
no, it's true. I mean, it
I'm
really
kidding.
is. There's, with a lot of stuff, there's ebb and flows, but with that, I mean, it really did just keep getting worse and worse. See, I was born in 87,
Okay.
but I have older cousins. My sister's older, and I always spent time with them. I always hung out with them, and for some reason, they let me tag along. It was pretty nice of them. So they would watch MTV and stuff. So, I mean, I remember watching all that stuff growing up, and, I mean, you're right. It pretty much just started going downhill, and it just kept going, and now it's horrible.
It's awful.
It's
No.
the worst.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's still on. But so then once
You don't like Teen Wolf?
yeah, no. I love Teen Wolf, but if Michael J. Fox isn't in it, and then who was in the second one? Is Jason Bateman? Is that
Yes.
who it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll get down on that, but as far as the series goes, no sir, no thank you.
Well, I mean, now it would have to be middle-aged Wolf. So
Yeah.
you have to move on to some new people.
No, I would get down on a middle-aged wolf. I mean, it's like, oh, I really want to go out and just tear somebody up, but I have to balance my checkbook. I could do that.
I think you should make a bumper sticker that says, "I would get down on a middle-aged wolf." That's gonna get you pulled over for a lot of different reasons than you thought.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, even better.
Depends
I'm gonna get that T-shirt.
Yeah. You'll be at a bar and somebody will say, "Whose car says they'll go down on a middle-aged wolf?" Oh,
That guy. Oh, that's great. See, you don't need a bunch of smoky room to be funny.
yeah. I just don't think I'm as funny when I don't have a contact high.
Yeah. So after that, that's pretty much whenever you moved into Rocket Power. How did that come about?
Well, it's funny. It's like you do the jobs that people need you to do, and at MTV, my partner and I did all of these segments when we did these big live and taped location programming, like the Beach House, where we just had tons of stars come by because it was a cool place to come, but it didn't feel like we were in a studio. We also did this thing called Mount MTV in Aspen, where we did the whole thing at 13,000 feet, and that almost killed us. But the reason you do that is that the sponsors that are already buying ads on MTV want to have parts of the programming that feels like it was made for MTV belong to them. It's called specialty marketing segments, or what you're basically doing is taking their marketing approach and turning it into an MTV idea, which to the ad company, like for example, Lee Jeans was a sponsor of the Beach House. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And their thing was jorts was big. Remember early 90s jorts?
Zach's got some on right now.
Nice. Kevin still has the same pair on.
Yeah.
But they had their slogan was jeans that fit. And so it's like I came up with a fun segment where we did a competition, and good-looking guys and gals would run an obstacle course wearing their bathing suits, wearing bikinis and swim shorts, and jump into the pool. And while our underwater cameras watched, they would pull on different jeans and try to find the ones that fit them. And of course, it was all like stupid action and lots of skin and like a really fun MTV segment.
Sure.
But the advertiser was like, "Holy smokes, we're totally a part of the MTV thing now." So we were we were with a lot of different sponsors, really liked us, and when this company called Klasky Chupo, they made Rugrats and Rocket Power and Wild Thornberries and Ginger. They made a bunch of shows. They went to Nickelodeon to find somebody that could help them write stuff for McDonald's, because McDonald's had approached them to animate some ads, and they're like, we might actually do animated adventures with Ronald and his friends. And they said, do you have anybody? And Klasky didn't have anybody. So they went to Nick, and Nickelodeon and MTV there's a lot of crossover, and we had friends there. So they recommended us. And we came in and met with McDonald's and wrote their show for them. We wrote it was like one of the biggest selling VHS tapes of all time because it had Ronald McDonald and friends. And it was called Scared Silly. And it was just a fun adventure, but it followed all of their rules, and it was cool for us. And after that, Nickelodeon's like, man, you guys had a slam dunk on that. We want to know if you'll take a look at some of the Klasky Chupo stuff. So we went in, and they're like, we want to do an extreme sports show. And so we put that show together, and that's how Rocket Power was born. But our pitch was, it's going to be stories of our youth, but sort of told through the lens of kids that do a lot of extreme sports. Because back when I was a kid, it was all like skimboarding, and we did surf, but we wanted to be kind of true to all the sports that were in the show. So it's the first time like a surfing cartoon where they weren't like on ironing boards on top of the waves and all that stuff. We had good friends at Surfing Magazine that we knew from all of our beach house days, and they helped us make it authentic, and and it became a hit. That show it's still on. It's on now.
Yeah, I was gonna say it came back. It's on Splat now or whatever. They just brought it back. I don't have that channel, so I hate my life. Thanks for bringing that up.
Wow, you can find the negative in anything.
No, that's Zach.
No, so I mean, it sounds like a mundane story, but it's like, again, it's like for some people, it's interesting to find out how did you get to the step where you could do the thing that was cool and that you wanted, and it all comes from like doing something that a lot of people would be like, that is not cool. You're doing marketing segments, and it's like, dude, it's the job. Got to do it.
Yeah, I mean, everything. It's a ladder. Every step of the ladder gets you closer to where you want to be. I mean, that's a big reason why we wanted to start the podcast, is just to meet people and know people and learn and just learn about the industry in general. And the industry is a broad term. There's so much in the industry. It's like it's. And I was talking.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ways in now that we just didn't have that opportunity. Like on YouTube, you can get on there and start making your own show, and you may end up being at like a big Smash.com style company within the year.
Right.
If you have something to say and people like it.
Well, we have something to say, just nobody likes it. It's okay. We like it.
Yeah, there's two sides to that coin. Gotta work on it.
Yeah. So now. Again, the reason that I did reach out was, and it was really funny, I did not put two and two together until after I was doing some research. I was like, man, I loved Rocket Power. That was a cartoon I really, really enjoyed. And I was probably, I don't know, 11, 12, 13, right around in there whenever it came out. And I like to skateboard and BMX and stuff, so it really just was perfect for me. So I did some research. I love to write. I'm a writer, so usually with that stuff, I want to find out who's behind the scenes. Not necessarily, who is the actor in it or something. I like to look, okay, well, who made that? Who wrote that and made it what it is? And I looked and I seen the name and I was like, well, that sounds really familiar. And turns out I'd been listening to Edumacation for a while now, and I was like, oh. Well, that's cool. It's the same.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people that listen to the podcast have no idea what my last name is, because it's Edumacation Andy all the way.
Oh, I thought Andy was your last name. I thought your name was Edumacation. Is it not?
That is no. Back when I was born, the birth certificates weren't that wide. You couldn't put a name that long on them.
I thought Kevin made you legally change it.
Yeah. Because Kevin does everything legally, as we know.
Obviously.
Yeah. I'll buy the book with that, Mr. Smith.
Yeah. So after Rocket Power, that's whenever you kind of went in and started doing stuff with Leno?
Well, I have to mention a few things about Rocket Power that I think are interesting. They may not be funny, as none of this has been funny so far from coming out of my mouth.
I like
it. The things that we wanted to try were all story stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, we wanted to have the kids, like, we kind of took the classic Disney model. Like, in every Disney movie, the kid's either an orphan or the parent, like, the mom's dead.
Right.
And we thought, well, what if we did that, but instead of having the kids go away from the family to have their adventure? What if the dad was like super involved and gave a shit about all of it?
Right.
And the stuff that he does is stuff that they admire and they want to do themselves. So, we made him like a old style soul surfer and his best buddy from Hawaii, and he run a shop. And, Nick, the initial response was, well, we don't really have a model for this, but we'll test it, because they do tons of testing. And that was the thing that came back, where kids are like, we love that. We love the fact that they have a relationship with their dad.
Yeah.
And so when they're out doing, they have the freedom, because they're kind of always close to home, to really kind of push it, but they have the safety of being near dad. And when they do wrong, dad kind of gets on them for it. And we admire all that. We love all that. And we were very happy about that. So it's sort of like, if you can think of a story that brings true to people, and those are, the difference between plot and story is, the story is what happens to the characters. The plot is what happens to everything. It's like the characters have to grow, and their relationships have to be meaningful, and that's what the story is. And we were lucky, because, we were pretty junior at that point. We'd written like one pilot for Disney and a script that Matt Groening's company bought.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Can you talk about that at all?
I mean, it was a goofy script. It was called 10,000 Miles High, and it was about a girl who, how it's like a nightmare if you're in high school and you're going to finally be a senior, and then your parents move, like your dad's in the army or something.
Right.
This happens to her, but she moves to a space station. And so all the shenanigans that happen are all amped up by the sort of science fiction stuff.
Cool.
And Matt Groening is a big science fiction guy, and he really liked the idea. So as most writers will tell you, we worked really, really hard on it, and nothing came of it.
Yeah, that's a story that I hear a lot.
But you got to keep doing it. It's like the hardest kind of writing. I mean, I do a lot of it. I've always done it, where you're not getting paid. You're sitting here and you're trying to say something that's meaningful to you, that you think will be resonating with an audience. All writing is for an audience. Even a grocery list, it's for somebody.
Sure. Well, yeah.
So
what made you know that that's what you wanted to do, that you knew that you wanted to be a writer?
Well, I always wanted to be a writer, but when I was a kid, it was more like the romantic idea of, writers are cool, and can you believe it? Like the American dream of living off your wits and everything. And it seemed like one of those jobs where it's like, I get paid for doing this. But it turns out it's hard work and everything. But when I was in high school, there was a girl I liked in one of my classes, and she loved Harlequin romances. And so I actually was like, you know what, I'm going to read a Harlequin romance, one of these crappy romance novels, and see what it's all about. And maybe I can write a romance novel, and that'll be my way of being like, hey, I wrote this romance novel. What do you think? So, because I was very shy and very nerdy. I'm slightly less shy and nerdy now. And I started writing this Harlequin romance, but it came out as a pretty broad comedy. And I realized, if I can't actually write without it being a comedy, then maybe I should start writing comedy. And that's when things clicked for me. I really enjoy writing funny things.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're good at it.
Well, that's nice to hear. Yeah. You don't hear that a lot. So.
Yeah. Well, you definitely are. And
Yeah.
I mean, going back to Rocket Power, there was funny stuff in it, but it was more than just that. It was the storytelling that was in it that was compelling. There's always cartoons. I think a good cartoon is a cartoon that a parent can sit down and watch with the kid and enjoy it. And Rocket Power was like that. I mean, I remember being at friends' houses, and their parents would be like, we'd be watching together, and their parents would just sit down on the couch and just start watching it with us.
Yeah, some of the parents we knew at the time were like, okay, there's some in that show, right? Do you mind if I swear on this podcast? I don't know if it's...
You say whatever you want. We'll probably bleep it out, but you say whatever you want.
All right, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be so... I just spent the day in a writer's room, and the language is always very blue. It's tough to kind of wean yourself of that when you jump right onto it doing a podcast.
Right.
But in the show, Ray and Tito their character design is such that they kind of look like they're high all the time. That was something that the animators did. There is things in it like during a big skating competition when everyone's focused on the foreground, the animators did the Star Trek 4 and they brought a spaceship down and stole a whale out of the ocean, which was not spotted the first 20 times the show aired. It was only spotted like 3 years into the run. Tito, his family, they're all named after the Jacksons, the Jackson 5.
Right.
Yeah.
So, let's see what else. The kid Twister, his family is Latin. They're Mexican American, and we felt like it was too stereotypical to give them all actual names that they would be named after if they lived in Mexico. So we named them Lars and Ulf, and they're all named after Nordic heroes. So those were all the things where it's like, yeah, you know what? If it doesn't hurt the story, let's flip some of this stuff and make it be like, you know what? Maybe that requires a second look because it's a little weird. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean that is pretty cool. I mean, I guess I never really thought about how strange Twist's family's names were. That's pretty cool.
And his older mean brother, I mean, the actor that played him is a very nice guy. He was a big character actor at the time. He was on every hour-long television show you ever saw. And he's like, it's nice for me as a Latino actor to come in and play a character whose name is Lars. I mean, I don't feel like I'm being typecast. Yeah. What's Lars's story? And we're like, well, funny you should mention it. But yeah.
That's awesome. So, how long did you guys work on that? How many seasons was there of Rocket Power?
There were 3 seasons. We did the first 2, and after we left, I think you might have noticed a sharp decline in the quality of the show. We left. We went to Fox TV Studios and we started doing big reality productions, which was starting to get more popular. And coming from MTV, we had done a lot of stuff as one-offs that were, close to the reality genre, and we had the production chops to be able to carry them off. So we left. And when they wanted to bring up the 3rd season, we were not available, and it killed us. We were very sad about that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure because it sounds like it was a labor of love, and then to have to turn that over to somebody else and watch what they do with it, and obviously.
Oh my God! And you should always learn, especially if you're going to do something creative for a living. You always need to learn about something. That's why I have I know how to do a lot of animation things and CG stuff. Like I helped Kevin with his last movie. I did a lot of the special effects.
Awesome.
Because, at the Tonight Show, I had been there so long, I sort of was writing a ton of jokes and doing a ton of bits that I could have done in my sleep at that point. So I just decided to learn more stuff. At Rocket Power, I went to animation school. I mean, it was awesome. We had this great production team. Jim Duffy was the main director of the show, and he'd been around forever. He worked for Ralph Bakshi. He did all the G.I. Joe cartoons. He did Transformer cartoons. And are you familiar with the G.I. Joe cartoon series? Have you ever seen those?
Oh, we've never heard of those.
Yeah, what's that?
Well, just as a funny thing, he did all the voice direction too for G.I. Joe. Okay. And the actors would come in and they would deliver their lines very flatly because the show was written for a younger audience, and they're just like basically doing a lot of exposition. They're like, we have to get to that ridge and make sure that he doesn't do this or that. And Jim was like, man, it's flat as a pancake. What am I going to do? So they did what's called a radio play where you cut together the voiceover, and he was very frustrated. And the actors came in to re-record, and he had put treadmills in the recording studio and set them all for 4 miles an hour. And he's like, not only did they finish their lines very quickly, but they sounded like they were in action. They sounded like they were concerned and part of it. And
that's really
loved Jim, and they loved him so much. Everybody on that show, as in every show he'd been on, God rest his soul, they gave him, in the credits of that show, he's the voice of Snake Eyes. And if you recall, Snake Eyes is the one that never talks.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's always there's always a lot of little buried treasures that animators do because you spend so much time with the material, but that going over something for the 50th time or sitting there and drawing one cell or drawing a background, which might take you 2 weeks, you got to keep yourself entertained.
Yeah.
So it's very fun.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And then we're going to go ahead just real quick before we start getting into what you did with Leno. We're going to take a quick break and have a word from our sponsors this week.
This is Tad Stones, the creator of Darkwing Duck. And I say, dude, remember this?
Hey guys, guess what? We are so sorry to interrupt this amazing episode. I know you want to hear it. I know you want to hear it more, but wait one moment because we got this week's sponsor to get through. So shut your faces and listen up because this week we're sponsored by Yamura. I said it right.
Yamura.
You got that right, Yamura.
Yeah.
It is a
Sound
novel
it out.
written by Jason Doyle that you need to just listen to the rest of this and then go read it and then tell us what you think about the reading that you just did with your eyeballs. Tell us what it's like. So it's Yamura. It's about a guy named Jake, not me, a different guy named Jake, in a little Indiana town, different Indiana town, not this Indiana town. A lot of coincidences going on here. Jason Doyle, you might be in love with me. I think so. Here's the facts, okay? There's a guy named Jake. There's a lot of stuff going on, creatures and whatnot. He's not sure what's going to happen. It's going to get crazy. There's some cool art. There's the covers done by a cool artist that Jason Doyle says is good. So y'all just need to look at it with your eyeballs. Enough about this. Once you're done going Lulu or Amazon or iBookstore, you just look for Yamura. That's Yamura. Or just look for Jason Doyle.
Doyle rule.
All right, guys, we're back. Awesome. So after Rocket Power, that's whenever you started. You said you did some reality stuff, and kind of moved into Leno was kind of the next big thing that you did.
Well, actually, yeah, I split up with my partner and he wanted to be an executive, and I didn't want to stand in his way, so I went off and did Scary Movie 2 with the Wayans, and I wrote an ending that was so disturbing that after we shot it, like you test the movie in front of audiences, and the testing we did after we shot the ending was in front of an audience of a very sort of criminal element in Long Beach. It was a very scary crowd, and they all wrote, "You guys are going to hell." That last scene was unbelievably odd. So we rewrote it. But that was really fun. It was fun to get back with Keenan and the Wayans, and I'm still doing stuff with them. We're just with Marlon now because Keenan and Sean are off doing their own thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, again, growing up in the 90s, the Wayans brothers, their show and Living Color and just all the stuff that, that they did, they had a huge influence on my lack of comedy, I guess. Now they should have done better, I guess. Way to go, guys. No, but they're hilarious. They're awesome. Those Scary Movies were so funny and just so needed, and started this whole revolution of spoof movies.
Yeah,
really.
they did. Yeah.
I mean, of course, there was ones before Airplane, and Naked Gun and stuff like that. But this is completely different for our generation. That really it was just great. It was hilarious.
Now we only did the first two, and then the Zucker brothers took over. So after Scary Movie 2, you might notice a sharp decline in the quality of the films.
I was going to say that. I'm glad you said it first.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what's funny? You keep saying that as a joke, and every time it's true.
Oh, that's nice to hear, but I think it's just brainwashing on my part.
Yeah, well, you're really good at it. Brainwasher, you. That's why I keep listening to Edumacation. He's just brainwashing us every day.
So I went to the Tonight Show, and this is another one of those things where the Tonight Show, I had done all these sketches on the Keenan Show, and they liked them a lot, and they hired the director that had done most of my sketches, Anthony Kaleka. And so he called up. He's like, hey, you want to come over and, meet these guys? And I was with my partner at the time, and I said no. But then after we split up, I was like, yeah, I guess I should.
Yeah.
So I go over there, and they're like, listen, we don't last twice. This is the Tonight Show.
Oh, man.
And I went home, and I'm like, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
And then my phone rang, and they're like, hey, we have this pain in the ass marketing thing that we're doing with American Airlines. Do you want to maybe, I hear Anthony told us he used to do that sort of thing at MTV. And I was like, yes, I do. Thank you, marketing segments. You have come through again.
See?
And I went back, and it was for American Airlines. And so I started in May of 2001. And the idea was American Airlines, to compete with United, was taking seats out of their planes so they would have more room in coach for your legroom. And their campaign was a seat named 23A, who had been ripped out of his thing and thrown off the plane to make room for more legroom for passengers. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll write you some Tonight Show sketches. So I did. It was 20 ads that appeared directly after the monologue, and Jay would say, hey, take a look at this. American Airlines is, we're going to have some fun. And we would show the thing, and then Jay would pick a ball out of the hopper, and it would be the number of a flight that was in flight right then, and we would go live to the flight, and we would give everyone on the flight a free round-trip first-class ticket, and everyone in the audience a round-trip first-class ticket. So everything was like this big money thing. We shot all these segments. I shot sketches with Gilbert Gottfried where he was still strapped into the seat when they threw it out of the plane. It was just this crazy summer, and our budget was like, it was the first time I had a real budget to play with because it was for advertising. The sponsor always has more money than the production. And so our last shoot day was September 11th, 2001.
Whoa.
And I get a call, like we get woken up here in LA because I've been up all night doing, editing. And they're like, we got to get all the trucks off the street. American Airlines is going to go underground for a while because there was an accident. And I didn't know what it was, but then my wife and I turned on the TV and that was it. And I'm like, oh my God, like it's so crazy. And then, so I went into the production office to talk to the American folks and see if everybody was doing okay. And they're like, the marketing team, we're like the grief counselors. We're going to the airport now to talk. I mean, it was like the saddest thing. And I'm like, I can't believe it happened. And I can't believe this connection is so poignant and crazy.
Wow.
And then the Tonight Show called and they're like, we want you to work full time for us. But we're not going to air the ads. So those are the secret ads that never will be seen, based on September 11th. And so that's how I got hired on the Tonight Show.
Well, that was dark, man.
Well, I know it's sad and everything, but it's kind of crazy. Like, that's a story right there.
Yeah. You know what's funny, though, is after you did those ads, it really seems like, American Airlines, just really the quality of that company just really started going downhill after that.
Their ads, at least.
I mean, that is a true statement.
But they were just like, and I'm meeting with these guys, and they're like, I mean, of all the things, our ads are about, like, debris coming out of airplanes.
Right.
So they took everything. They took all of the media. Those will never be seen.
Wow.
Sad.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, of course, nothing compared with the tragedy, but it's just like, it was so crazy. It was such a weird, like one of those days where you're already numbed from the news and you're watching in total disbelief. And then everything else is just like, you're just, a zombie. It was crazy.
So what's one of your favorite things you got to do on the Tonight Show?
Gosh, I did so much stuff. I got to say the Kevin Smith pieces were my favorite.
The road trips. The
road trips with Kevin, and we really never aimed that high. Like, we went to the world's second largest ball of twine. Didn't even, I can't be bothered. It's 200 miles away for the number one, and they're probably jerks there. Let's just go to the second. It's fine.
They're going to appreciate it so much more.
Yeah, they rolled out the red carpet for us.
Yeah, it's like, please come in. Thank you.
We're like at the end. We're like, don't go winding any more twine on there. You guys are great at number 2. You're the Avis. You're the Avis of twines. Try harder. But those were great. Kevin Nealon was a great talent to work with, and he's really funny, and he just gives you a lot, and he likes my jokes, so that's always very flattering to a writer. But Chappelle was a big one. Chappelle was my first, like right after the September 11th, after that Christmas was the Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City. And Dave Chappelle had not been like, he was a well-known person, but he wasn't a huge star like he became. So we went around, we shot a bunch of pieces with him before the Olympics started. And then they started airing, and we couldn't go anywhere without 3 or 4 bodyguards just to get him across the street. Like, he blew up, and he was having the time of his life. And that was a really funny, fun time. I mean, that was a lot of work. We all, it was 3 weeks of no sleep and, all this craziness. But even so, it was totally worth it. It was so much fun. If you want to see any of those, I've got some of them posted on Vimeo, or you can go to my website, which is andymcalfresh.com. And you can see all this crazy stuff we did. It was really fun.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually going to ask if there was any place I could go to actually see that stuff, because I'm a pretty big Chappelle fan. I love the stuff that he's done. He's hilarious. So that'd be cool to see him, back whenever he was just kind of getting his feet wet and really starting to get.
I mean, he'd been in some movies, and he was, he was well known, but he just, the Olympics, the ratings were so amazingly high, as was Dave Chappelle.
That helps.
I'll try to say this in language that I can't be sued by anybody, but he was only supposed to be on the first week, and then Dane Cook was going to come up and do my second week of stuff. And he did so well in his first night that the head of the network and the executive producer of The Tonight Show called and said, we're keeping Dave for the 2 weeks. Go tell him. He's going to be excited. So I went and told him, and he's like, I can't do that. I only brought enough supplies for 1 week.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, we'll buy it. We already bought you all your clothes. And I mean, of course, you can eat whatever you want. And he's like, no. I mean supplies. Like, a friend of mine drove my supplies here because I didn't have to take it on a commercial airline. And I said, well, if there was a way for you to get supplies that was not on a commercial airline, would you do it? And he said, of course I would. I love this. So, again, speaking completely in hypotheticals with everyone, I'm like,
sure.
What would be involved in Dave getting the supplies? They're like, well, certain supplies we cannot purchase for him because that would be in violation of the law. And we don't want to do that. And I said, well, what if he was able to get his own supplies without taking commercial airlines? And the executive producer picks up the phone off a speaker. She's like, are you telling me you want the NBC jet on the middle weekend of the Winter Olympics? And I said, it's an idea. They called back 5 minutes later. They're like, he's got it.
Oh, that's awesome. See, man, how many people have that story? That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
pretty funny. But I also thank Steve Ridgway, who's my producer for those segments, who, he made a lot of stuff happen that I don't want to know because I don't want to have to testify.
Sure. Yeah. So I see a pattern here. You work with a lot of people who constantly have supplies.
That's true. But you know what? I do have to say this about Dave Chappelle. We did a bunch of stuff at The Tonight Show. And after I stopped working with him, you may notice a sharp improvement in the quality of his work. So,
now, up
in his
until
case,
this point, it's been true. But Dave Chappelle, the Chappelle Show was hilarious.
I'm saying an improvement. He got better.
Oh, he did. Okay,
Yeah.
That makes sense. I thought you were going to say there was a decline there.
See, it wouldn't be a triple if the third one wasn't different. Can't write a triple without the third one being the flip.
I like your style. Andy McElfresh, you're a genius.
Well,
I hear about it all the time. So how did that start? How did you? Now I know you met Kevin Smith through the Tonight Show, but then how did everything start with you guys doing the podcast?
We were out working. We were like in just a rundown, open mine in northern upstate New York. And he's interviewing this guy, and I would do what you do when you're producing talent and writing for them. You take a big blue index card and you write jokes on it so that when they're working, they can concentrate on all the things, but also have a joke that they can go to. So I'm writing jokes for him, and he's looking at him, and he's literally like looking at me and giving me the silent thumbs up going, "That's funny," and then continues to talk to the guy without doing the joke. We could do like 5 minutes of this until I stop. I'm like, you're supposed to do these jokes. And he's like, "Oh, I just thought you were kind of trying to crack me up while I was on." And after we did that, the whole piece together, he's like, I've never done any work that someone's written for me. Like, I've never had someone else write for me as me. And it's really fun. And so we had a lot of fun together that way. And when the Tonight Show was winding down, I was like, oh, man, enough is enough. I got to change my life. It's like, he was on as a guest, and he was like, well, why don't you come over to my house? We'll change your life later on. And I thought he was joking around, like, what an off-putting way. I was like, fine, I'll come over and say hi. I come over, and he's like, yeah, Fox offered me a half-hour sitcom. Do you want to write it? And I'm like, yes.
Nice.
He was true to his word. It was very fun.
Awesome.
So.
Did anything?
And that's another secret tape you'll never see because it didn't air.
Exactly, man. Come on, you're killing me. I knew it. So
then
you
we
guys
left Fox, and you might notice after we left Fox. Never mind. That horse has been dead, and I've been kicking it for a little while now.
No, it's good. I'm actually getting that T-shirt made. I'm going to contact one of our sponsors and tell them to make that. Once Andy McElfresh is done with it, the quality really goes downhill. Yeah. Great. Why do we have him on the podcast? And this is like episode 4, and after this, the quality is going to be horrible. We're done.
Awful.
Great.
I didn't want to say anything. I'll keep my fingers crossed for you.
Yeah. So basically, Kevin just came to you then, and he's like, "Hey, I want to do this."
So I went to him.
Oh, you told him.
Said, I got to change my life. Just being like, hey, friend who I've known for 10 years, or at that point, almost 13 years. And he was like, I am happy to be the guy that's going to help you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome to have friends like that. I mean, that's really going to say, okay, I have an opportunity here. Yeah. I want you to come in and do it with me. Yeah. That's great. You know what's funny is he is the one person that I told Zach whenever we first started doing this. Of course, you have the list. You start making lists. Like, okay, I want this person, I'd like to interview them. And then you have, the one. And it's like, if I ever had the opportunity to interview that person, it would that would set. And Kevin Smith is that's my one. It'll never happen, I'm sure, because he's one of the busiest people, it seems like. He's constantly doing stuff. But I'm like 6 years down the road, when we're still doing this show and no one's listening, hopefully he'll say, okay, yeah, let's do that show, buddy.
Well, I'll put in a good word for you. What are your names? Is it Frickin' Frack, the Morning Zoo guys? Or
yes, exactly. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. That's perfect. Tell him that.
Hey, listen, I hate to be a party pooper. But my wife is knocking, and I have some other obligations that I must hurriedly attend to.
Yeah, we're coming up on the hour anyway, so that's what I was actually getting ready to say is that we're coming up on the hour. Wanted to let you go, man. Really, thank you very much for being with us. Yeah. We really enjoyed it. We've enjoyed all your work. We didn't really get to talk about White Chicks at all, no. But you've done some awesome stuff. So really, thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so happy to have been on the show, and if you feel the quality going down, just call me up and I'll be on again.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have anything you want to plug real quick before you go?
I've got a leaky faucet in my daughter's bathroom. I should probably do something about, but no, I mean I'm working with Kevin. We're doing our thing, and TV being what it is, it's all kind of super secret. But look on. The project that we're going to work on next, I can't say it, but it rhymes with Fluckaroo Flanzai.
Yeah, I think he's already leaked it.
I know, but I don't want to be the source.
You don't want to be the guy, yeah. I'm stoked about that the hypothetical thing that you may be doing that I probably never will be able to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's all we have for you. Andy, we're going to go ahead and let you go. Don't stop recording. We'll go ahead and let you go. Thank you so much. And,
all right. Thank you for having me, guys.
No problem.
Okay.
We'll see you.